Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Academic Committee to order. This is a hybrid meeting taking place in Conference Room E. Requests for public comment participation will be accepted between 3 and 3:30 by sending an email with your name. That has already passed, so it makes no sense for me to read this. Committee members present in person are myself, Kathy Robine, Mr. Melvin Campbell, Colonel Dick Dyer, and I'm not sure if Angela Middleton is online. Also present in the room is Dr. Stratos, and we have a parent who's here who is going to speak with us during the first part of the meeting, Mr. David Cook. So at this point, I invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, committee members, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Don't see any. All those in favor of the agenda, please.
Aye.
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 So that's 4-0. Okay. Public comments. I think I will, Mr. Cook is here in person. I do want to just set the stage a little bit. On our agenda are administrative regulations IS 38 and IS 38.1. We had disposed of those at the academic committee. We had heard them. They've been presented to the full board. Mr. Cook contacted me and asked if we could put that back on the agenda of the regular board meeting. Wasn't able to accommodate that, but I invited him to this meeting so that he could share some of his thoughts with us. This portion of the meeting is limited to 15 minutes because we really need to move on with our OE 12. So we will go to public comments. Before we do public comments, well, let's do public comments and then I have to do the approval of the other minutes. So Mr. Cook, you want to start us off, then we're going to do approval and then, okay?
I don't have any public comments. I'm happy to engage with you with the IS 38.
Okay, so at this point we have need a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes from June 22nd.
Chair, I move we approve the minutes from June 22nd committee meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Dick Dyer seconds it. All those, any comments? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that's 4-0. Okay, so now school library materials selection and adoption 38.1. I know that that there was some question. We went over this in detail, and I believe feedback that I got from Mr. Cook on this was he was concerned about the makeup of the committee that would be evaluating challenge material. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern. I mean, when I reviewed everything else on here, I know that you have to follow a standard. I'm well aware of that. The makeup of the committee seems a little bit it's not as objective as I would think it would be, but I understand there's got to be a process. I thought that there might be more involvement maybe with people from the SIC for that school, more than one representative from the SIC, maybe a representative from a PTO. I'm not sure the legality of the PTO being involved in it. But the way I saw it, it just seems like it's more of the, how would you say, the best way to put it is it's more like a prosecutor putting his staff in the jury box when it comes to a review and making a decision. And it's not as doesn't really follow due process as much as I think it would be considering what's on the line as far as reviewing books. And I want you to keep in mind that I by no means do I consider this something where we need to be removing books from our library. I don't believe we need to. I believe there's probably a better solution that's much more reasonable and easier for district staff to handle. I think there are some books that we do have in the libraries that, given what I've seen in their text and content, that may not be best suited for kids that they're targeting based on language or some of the behaviors in the books, including language that, if a student was to use that language, would put them in a disciplinary action. Being an educational institution, I would expect that they're not going to have a kid be reviewing materials that would put them in harm's way, as opposed to maybe saying, okay, the book has a good lesson in it. This might be something that a counselor can get to a student if they need it, because I agree with the statement, I'm not sure who made it, but not every kid can get to a public library. And as far as the school library is the only one that ever needs to see. So having the books available, but maybe under a controlled setting, may work out a little bit better for the students. My daughter's 13, my son's 9, and there are some books in their schools that probably need to be in a controlled setting. Maybe not necessarily a classroom library, but if there's a separate office or something that a counselor might be better for a school counselor to have, social worker to have. There's a lesson in all the literature that I'm looking at. And I support creative writing, and that's a very big part of what you try to teach the students as well. So the lesson you want is to be, teaching the kids, oh, we took that book away.
So what we have now is any parent can opt out and say, I don't want my child to have access to this book. So how do you think that's different than what you're asking for?
Well, I mean, obviously, if I'm going to have a book in for reconsideration, it's going to go in front of review. I think that the process that we've had in selecting books for our school libraries in the recent past, I'm not clear of what the process is. I know that we've got something here, but when I looked it up under statute for the state standards, the statute said that library books came from the State Board of Education, and then the schools could select what they wanted. So I'm not sure if the process has changed or is evolving as far as how books are selected and reviewed. As far as an opt-out, I don't know that you necessarily need to have an opt-out. I think it's a good alternative for some parents that are like, I don't want my kid to have access to it. Because I know that they can search through their school device. I think through Sora or one of the applications, they can look up books. They can get ebooks through that application. And I'm pretty sure that if they're able to look it up, they can also be blocked. But that's quite a big undertaking. So the idea being, okay, maybe we need to remove this from the process where it has to be given counselor approval or parent approval to go in to see a book if it's being recommended from a counselor. And, opt out, I understand the idea with the opt out.
Well, I don't know if someone else can jump in here, but I think books that are in the library usually are free for all. I mean, I don't think the counselor saying, I'm recommending this. It could be that they're making recommendations, but that the kids are kind of choosing what book they want.
Yeah. My biggest concern really is, that there's content and behavior in the books that may or may not have influence over a student's behavior in school, out of school. stuff that underage drinking, premarital sex, defying authority, anti-police rhetoric, drug use. I mean, there's a lot of things in the books that, I know that you have to take a holistic approach to the book, but at what point are we going to say, oh, well, we can't worry about those little things. This message in the book is more important. Where I think that the content of what's in the book is just as important as the message.
Now,
One way at a time with this elephant.
Yeah.
First of all, the district's committee to review. You said it like fill the jury box with your own people, basically, what you're saying. But the district is the caretakers of our children in terms of this. And that's probably expected that we got a plan on the kind of books that's going to be in the library and what the kids are going to receive. And you bring up a book, if you bring up a book, that's saying that people look at it again, and that's how we move the needle. Yeah. I got to complain about it. I'm sure you're going to be heard by all of those people who are experts from top to bottom in terms of vetting that. I see that as a win approach, or else you're going to really open up a can of worms with who's looking at this book this time and who is judging it this time, which is who's going to judge it the next time. And you're going to have a bunch of varying opinions and committees, so it becomes a witch hunt for real then. But we want to kind of make sure, use a better word, I guess, that we have witches and books too. But yeah, I think that we have to remain standard, like everything else.
Yeah.
But people have a chance to grieve what's happening, have a chance to poke that needle a little bit more to the right or left, whichever way, because I don't think this book, and I can argue it. That's the approach from the committee standpoint. I think we do need that kind of concept of everybody who are the experts from the district on down to that librarian or classroom teacher who's on that committee. That's our role person. You said that's our PTSO person, parent. And who they pick, I guess, is also subjective. But the school improvement council, I think you got a varying degree of eyes, expecting it, understanding the components of where we are, and I think that's fair.
I understand, and to a certain degree, I think that the way I see it is that district staff has already put the book there.
Not really.
Maybe, well, according to the way.
Yeah, right. I understand what you're saying.
I'm being told from the state, they're saying that the district has the responsibility to pick books out. So that it's already had the chance to be reviewed, and somebody thought, and maybe they don't have kids, but somebody thought, okay, this book that has a good message, even though there's anti-police rhetoric, or there's explicit language regarding sex.
Yeah, but that's, all I'm saying is that committee person that the district selects to be there, they have not seen that book that you're talking about that needs to be vetted. That's the reality of the situation. And is that person going to look at it from the standpoint of the district's educational plan and her own individual opinion, or his individual opinion about it? That's what you want. You want people who are looking at it and vetting it from all directions.
Yeah, I don't want people that are biased. That's
exactly.
But a district employee would be biased.
Why?
That's the opinion, because they're paid by the district.
Oh,
we need to keep that in there. That's just the way I see it.
I understand.
I didn't say it.
We both worked in school districts.
We're educators, and we're caretakers of the children first. We're educators.
Teachers.
So we got to buy into the system of educators being genuine educators.
Sure.
And when you bring that situation up, they're going to vet it from the standpoint of what is his point, and I can understand his point. And let's take that book out if it needs to come out. And and I think that's me personally. And I'm not always going along with the program of the system. But I think that's a much fairer approach than when you start bagging certain people to attack this book and bagging other people to attack this book. I think you're now generally going along with our plan of educating the entire population. And that's got less chance for any drastic movement than if you have people, as I wish on. But look at it from that
So
standpoint.
the AR deals with process, and that's what, yeah. And Colonel Geyer, and then I'm afraid our 15 minutes is up. But I think, you know, urge your concerns about process. Colonel Geyer, did you have anything you wanted to add?
About the process?
Yeah. No. Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Language is a tough thing to deal with. And we had to deal with Huckleberry Finn, the classic. And you deal with it in the classroom. You talk about that's the way Samuel Clemens talked at the time. It's not acceptable. There's Catcher in the Rye, another classic. And it has behavior that we don't necessarily want students to do. But you know, once you ban something, once you say you're not going to have this, you're not going to read this here, that makes it, for me as a C student, very seductive. And I can recall that Lady Chatterley's Lover was banned when I was in high school, and I had to break any door I could find to find that and read that trashy book. And it was a big disappointment. Parental interest is the key. If parents are concerned about what their students are reading, their children are reading, they should be asking and keeping track of what they're reading, and the parent can say, no. And nobody in the school district is going to say, oh, I'm sorry, you have to read that book for this report. No one's going to do that. I am confident that our assigned reading in our English classes, in our biology classes, and everything are vetted through the state. And the history classes vetted through the state. We're not going to have CRT. We're not going to have other things here. This is South Carolina. This is not California or Massachusetts. But we'll never be able to stop free reading. We'll never be able to say, don't read this book, because they can get this. It's much easier now to get this book. And we can block on our iPads and on our computers, laptops that we give to our students. We can block inappropriate things. But we're not hackers, and we have procedures in place, but that's not going to stop them from going online, other places, and finding those things. It's very, very difficult subject.
It is, and I apologize. We have to stop here.
One real quick thing, if that's it. I'm not interested in going at any instructional books or anything that's already been reviewed by the state. By no means. We have a chance to review and oppose, and that process takes place. Thank you.
But, yeah, and what I'd like to do really is, after this process has been gone through one time, then I think it's the district to sit down and say, hey, let's evaluate how the process went. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Can I speak this up?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Dr. Travis. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so we went 5 minutes over. Okay.
And I did what's going on. 3 quick points of clarification. One is that we work off the state's association list of library books, also use national standards as well. The AR 38 gives a complete detail on the process, yes, and it's in support of ISAR 3. And then the second page of 38.1 gives a detailed account of membership,
Yes.
which is a very thorough, it gives parent voice. Actually, what we've done as a system is provide voice to parent.
Yeah.
To be, so you could, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, I have a team of instructional leaders with us today. Joining us electronically, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit you and our committee, Manage 38. We have operational expectations for all instructional programs. You have a copy of that in front of you. This evening, I'd like to introduce who I have joining us. I have Karen Gilbert, Karen McKinsey, Nicholas Flowers, Melissa Murray, and Latasha Middleton should be joining us. Yes, this is Middleton. I have another Middleton on board with us today. I recognize that we have taken an approach with this OE. Generally, we've always done a large stack of evidence. We're keeping to more of a summary approach. As you go through your packet, you'll see that page 2 is the certification page once we go through the discussion. Page 3 will take you to an overall superintendent's interpretation, and that is a 12.0. And if you look down on page 3 to 12.1, I'll start with some brief reading, and then I have the team here to help us with evidence as well. All right. So 12.1 states to ensure that the instructional programs are based on comprehensive and objective review of best practice research. The superintendent's interpretation is immediately under that. And I'm going to go directly to start pointing to the indicators of compliance on the bottom of page 3. And as I go through this membership from ISD as well as student services, Mrs. Middleton, if there's anything you'd like to share in. All right, we have annual complete and comprehensive alignment of content review that starts annually that we do with our curriculum writing. In order to write for the next year, we actually backwards map to clean up, to take the input from the schools, and then we go forward with our writing teams. We have alignment to standards, which is a requirement, it's also state law, alignment with assessments, and you'll see more of that information coming forward this year as we go into our second phase of Performance Matters. We conduct review of curriculum and programs along with recommendations for program modification or termination based on student achievement and cost effectiveness. Comprehensive textbook review and replacement for new adoptions. District-wide school site instructional reviews. We integrate the use of South Carolina evidence-based practice. There's actually a phenomenal resource, EBI recommendations based on the continuous improvement model. That is a training that also provided to all our coaches. Procedures and expectations for the district curriculum that adhere to research-based learning practices is in all content areas and all grades. To share with them, and Melissa Murray, if you're online, if you could speak a little to the curriculum audit actually conducted as we were working with the state for SIPs.
Yes, ma'am. So the State Department of Education has literacy support specialists work within our districts. So new curriculum that we have recently rolled out. Prior to us selecting it, we worked with a committee that was inclusive of 2 state representatives and educators across our district. And we utilized the rubric tool that the state provided to us, which comes from a partner that they work with to analyze all adoptions. And so what this allowed us to do is, one, have a nice collaborative relationship between what the state expects of our instructional resources, plus a kind of foot in the door heads up to our state's literacy coaches that support our schools about what our new rollouts and implementations will be. And then the rubric itself provided a very comprehensive view of the different components of literacy. And so we were able to really analyze the overall strengths and plan ahead for PD that was needed and a support that was needed based on this very comprehensive way to review. So in total, we actually spent about 3 weeks. We went section by section. Each person submitted their results. we compiled, and then we met to discuss, and then added evidence to why it scored where it scored, which was the overall average.
So to continue on some of our points of evidence as well, and Melissa, thank you so much. Our partnership that we've started with the University of Virginia, Darden Partnership for Leadership in Education, which is building capacity actually of membership within my team and targeted schools as well as our executive directors who are attending these trainings. I will go to the last bullet on that area on page 3, where Melissa just spoke about the utilization of the South Carolina instructional audit. And if we look right above that, the professional development, I do want to make note that as we go through professional development and identifying what is needed for our schools, that need is identified as a result of data that is collected from either our MAC testing, SC Ready testing, informal information from our schools, performance from the instructional programs that we have initiated. Now we're into year 2. And we try to build our PD as a result of the need of student performance and what is given back to by our instructional coaches, teachers, and administrators. Any questions on 12.1? I do have other language here that is in support of the continual improvement model and how we've also incorporated EBI within our division.
I would just note that, the gist of the 12.1 is review of best practice research, and you've added a whole bunch of things in here that show
Way beyond.
Yeah, way beyond.
Yes.
I think, utilization of the South Carolina instructional audit is like a succinct answer to that
Okay.
in terms of what you've
Yes,
done. I mean, I don't know how my other team members feel, but Dick? Yeah.
I think it's, the audit is the way to do it, and the standards are set by the state, and we know the standards, and we work to achieve the standard.
Thank you.
Mel?
Okay,
Okay, Angela? No? David? Okay, David, throw your hand up if you have something you want to say. Okay.
Oh, that was by accident. But yeah, I'll just comment that as usual, you all have far exceeded expectations on this.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. I always enjoy listening to you telling us what you're doing, because all that's going on that we don't see every day. But it's going to have a heck of an impact. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
A lot.
They're a mighty team, Mrs. Rowan. I have to share that. We're very lucky with integrated work with other departments. OE 12.2, base instruction on academic standards that meets or exceeds state and or nationally recognized model standards. If we go to page 4 for our indicators of compliance. And with that, I'm going to ask Mrs. Gilbert to join with us in this, as well as Latasha to talk a little bit, because Latasha, you at Battery Creek did some great work with Cambridge and ACE. You're one of the leading high schools in our district who picked up the ball when I introduced it to Dr. Cox. Can you just give us a brief information? I know you're removed from that, but you were a driving force, ma'am.
We chose to accept that the Cambridge program because it encompassed all students, not just a particular group of students. The way that the tests are designed is designed for students to think outside of the box, and because it's a international program, the way they test the students is not based on what you know, but it's based on how you come to the conclusion of what you come to. So unlike some of the other college type courses, Cambridge is trying to capture the whole student, not just a student who is able to determine things that really don't measure anything. Our students are basically, it could be a student who's a college prep student or a student who may struggle in class, but they teach them in a way that gets them to capture what they need to understand. So I loved the program. We had 191 students to go into the program. We tested about 220 students last year because some of them were in more than one class. So the Cambridge program was very successful at Battery Creek, and we've added like 7 more classes this year.
Mrs. Middleton, thank you. With that, Mrs. Gilbert, if you could bring forward just to highlight some of the examples of going beyond with our career technical education and our alignment of our program to the state required pathways.
Yes, good evening, board members. So 12.2 is addressing how are we aligning to nationally state recognized models. As Dr. Stratus mentioned, we've come a long way in the building of options under career and technical education, starting with the implementation at the state level of how they now recognize not only if you're college ready, but also how are you career ready. So we use the indicators to drive our course offerings, our instruction, and we also base those pathways off the national model for the 16 career clusters. And over the past 5 years, we have significantly increased our offerings for each of our schools and with our career center.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilbert. And if you look down at the example, I believe it's like the 12th bullet, opportunities for exceptional learning. I want to share that when we utilize the language in this document, exceptional learning, it is inclusive of gifted and talented students with an IEP as well as students with an ILAC. So we're using that as a collective term. So when you see we aren't leaving anyone out, collective at practice. If you go to the bullet 2 down from that, it highlights the professional development work in support of extensive academic programs, especially in the arts integration. If I could have Mrs. McKinsey, if you could share lightly on the Kennedy work that you've instituted this year that has gone beyond our local world, right? And the artists that you've actually bring it in. Thank you.
Absolutely. This year, we worked with our Kennedy Center partner, and our Kennedy Center partner is Alana Adams from Hilton Head Art Center. Provided over 4,000 hours of in-school, both with students and with teachers. We just secured a grant through the Kennedy Center to continue that work on even a larger scale this year with professional development with our teachers. We're focusing on integrating art into all curriculum areas based on standards-based instruction. So we're really excited for what we have going this year to extend what we started last year.
Thank you, Mrs. McKinsey, and that builds on some of the grants that you're familiar with. Okay, so I'll go, may I proceed?
Yes,
Are you
I
good?
think we have a good evidence of instruction that meet and exceed
Okay,
state or national. Yeah.
thank you. 12.3, aligned curriculum with South Carolina standards, same pattern of delivery with regard to superintendent interpretation. Here we have indicators of compliance is our course syllabus, standard-based pacing and instructional guidelines. We did give you a presentation on Rubicon and the update, and recognizing that Rubicon will be and is still available to public and parents, and the state accountability key performance indicators that are within our standards. We worked as much as possible to be more and more aligned. One of the upcoming meetings actually coming to our principals is with regard to the alignment and updates and some of the provisos from the state as well. So those are just some quick indicators.
So one of the things, well, I'm not sure this is true. Did the state mandate a personal finance class for graduates? Yeah.
Yes, so
yeah.
the language is actually, and we've done a little legwork on a cohort model. So the answer to that is yes. There's an additional 0.5 credit required under finance, and it's a national trend actually, Mrs. Yellowbine.
All the kids wanted it when we went to those meetings and said, okay, all right. Personally speaking, I think there's no doubt we're aligned with South Carolina standards. I mean, we hang our hat on that, right?
I have to say yes.
No?
I mean, question or comment or both. At one point in time, do we look at our standards at a different level?
It's wonderful that you actually brought that up, because we were in Columbia last week And on the drive back from Columbia is actually, and Mr. Flowers, I know you're online, because this is bridging on the conversation that we started at how, yes, we turned to look at what I'm gonna say are the essential standards, but that conversation that we had on our drive of how we are looking broader at our standards. Could you bridge on that a little bit, sir?
Yeah, so the conversation really thinking about the state, they identify priority standards, yes, but we really need to think about what are those essential standards for our district. So we need to factor in the state priority standards, but really reflect on our data and what the instructional practices are showing and hone in on what are our district's now essential standards that support what our data is showing us to prepare students to be college and career ready, along with alignment to the state. So kind of looking at what would take us to achieve high marks on the state assessment while also preparing our students to be prepared as they move through the grade levels. So building that conceptual understanding along with their understanding and application aspect.
So if I'm lending into the right direction, Mr. Campbell, that localized need through formative assessments is a practice through continuous improvement model that we're seeking to embed deeper. So it's not only are we doing the priority standards, but I may have to put a greater emphasis in all this purpose or in writing standards within my school. That's one of the capacity, but.
Well, yeah, I was
Go ahead.
more thinking, and she opened up a thought process in my mind when she said the way the Cambridge approach to education is, and my mind is that's a fundamental thing in education, approaching it where kids bring a package to the table and deal with the package.
Mm-hmm.
And many times we pigeonhole with the standards. Now, those standards are necessary and basics, and we have to reach those standards, but every state's got standards and different standards. So at what point in time do we move in a direction where a standardized kid is a standardized kid? Standardized student is ready for America, not just ready for South Carolina. That's what I was getting at.
So I think part of that builds on the conversation that Mrs. Middleton brought forward. And we recognize that we have priority standards, we have unique standards and needs at a school, but it's really like Latasha brought forward, it's how that student is utilizing that information and application. And it actually builds on the IS 38 on library material. Our goal is to have independent creative thinkers.
Yes.
We're giving you, but what are you doing with this? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is, we just don't want you here at the 50th percentile.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's too easy of a,
Right.
no, just, it's too easy of a mark.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Colonel Geyer, any comments you want to make?
No, that rings all my bells. I really believe that application and use of tools, give them the tools, show them the application, and have them comfortable with the application of the tools that we teach.
Right. Come back with a creative deal.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Keep on going.
So with that, I'll look go to 12.4. Effectively measure each student's progress towards achieving or exceeding the standards. Again, the interpretation, we look down to the indicators of compliance. BCSD provides a district testing calendar, in order for us to measure students' performance. Summative, that happens at the quarter mark and semester mark. But we also have our formative assessments that are driving instruction. District monitoring of school site testing implementation. We ensure compliance with proviso 1.96, which is the testing proviso of our requirement by state law, and I provided examples. Integration of professional learning communities that provide collaborative time for data analysis. If we go to the top of page 6, professional development book studies, one that has been utilized extensively with our principals and assistance principals. And we actually had a meeting with Rick Stiggins in Perfect Assessment. We have report cards. Some schools offline had elementary actually go beyond that grade and write detailed performance of students, especially our elementary principals. They almost informally do a standard-based report card, and they painstakingly write everything in detail. School site evidence of practice of the SC continuous improvement model. Those are our points of low compliance.
Any questions? No? Okay.
As we look at 12.5, ensure that the instructional program includes opportunities for students to develop talents and interests in more specialized areas. If we look down to the bullets, and you can understand why I have members on the team here, if any of you want to share in, from instructional initiatives that we've done from NSAB grant, the GIA grant, the number of career technical education programs we've provided. Mrs. Gilbert can share with you information on the growth of our programs, percentage of students participating in career pathways, results of secondary college and career readiness indicators, student individual graduation plans, the Sea Island School for the Arts and Academics, Universal Aptitude Screener. This is actually coming this year. We took this past year of planning. And Mr. Flowers, if you want to speak on the addition of that screener, because this will be our first year. I wanted this to come to board before we went to teachers, but you took the year for planning on development.
Yeah, so one of the things that we, as we worked through last year, we need to universally identify our students for identification of gifted and talented, really removing barriers that may show up from no matter where they live and whatever background they have. And so really the only way to do that is we have to universally identify. So what we're going to be doing is to put in the COGAT to identify for aptitude. So every year as students take the MAP assessment and iReady, they're already doing student achievement assessments, which is one of the dimensions that we can identify in. The second dimension, though, is in aptitude. And so we only universally administer an aptitude assessment to all students in grade 2. So by increasing it then, this will allow us in grades 4 and 6 to universally do an aptitude assessment just to see if they have the ability to perform high. And then if a student scores high enough in there, but not student achievement, that will allow us then to administer the state's performance task assessment. So we could potentially then increase our identification for gifted and talented students and find students who have the potential, we're just not seeing it yet, to really hone in then on them. And by administering it really in 4th grade, we're kind of getting through that middle of the elementary year. And then in 6th grade, we can kind of look at it to use as we start planning where they're going to be going for high school courses and all of that. And the data is good for a couple years. So if I administer it in 4th grade and then they score high enough in 5th grade on something, then I can use that data again. So putting in a few extra universal catches to try to find more students that could be identified.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers.
Dr. Stratus, may I add to that, please? Again, in support of some of the evidences that we encountered last year for career and technical education, as we started on a baseline of industry certifications that we wanted students to begin to attempt, we wanted to look at what are their specialty areas, and I was glad to see a resurgence of accounting. So we implemented piloted last year QuickBooks as a certification at one of our high schools, and it went very well. We had several students that did earn their credential. We will now be expanding that to the other high schools. So as we look at some of the base opportunities within our welding, culinary, healthcare, we're looking at how do we then work on stackable credentials. That's going to, again, address 12.5 of increasing more opportunities for talents within those areas. And one other way that we are increasing the percentage of students participating in career pathways, we implemented successfully the virtual job shadowing in our middle grades. High utilization, well received, and teachers asked for it again for this upcoming school year.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Earl Guy?
I have an itch on this, and the itch is block scheduling. Block scheduling reduces the number and opportunities for our children to learn about other things. And I'm thinking back to my education and my son's education. We had speech. Speech was a thing. You had to give speech. You had to learn to speak in front of a group. Music.
Public
Speaking, yeah.
Music. I had to take a course, and I had to take either choral, and I can't sing, so I had to learn. I learned about classical music and developed a lifelong love of classical music. Drafting. I had to take drafting. I had to take wood shop so I don't cut my fingers off. My grandsons can't even spell saw. I mean, they have no idea about the kind of home hands-on things. We become a society of specialists, and we have no generalists around. Home economics, I told you, robotics, that's a club. It could be a class. But block scheduling, you got 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes. There's not a lot of opportunity to give students, and some of them don't want to do. I didn't want to take art, but I had to. And I wasn't very good at it, but it did give me some appreciation. It broadened me. And so this is what I look at all of this and I say, what kind of kids are we putting out there?
Do you understand now that these children got a lot more options and electives and needed than you had?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Man, I just said that block scheduling is minimizing those opportunities. It's not exactly accurate because, let me give you just a typical example. If you were on a regular schedule, not block scheduling, most schools will have 7 courses per day. Seven courses for the year. You go every day, all year long. 7 subject matters. Block scheduling, they get 8. That's one more opportunity. And besides, there's only 24 Carnegie units that's absolutely needed. 4 years, you can have 32. That's 8 more subject matter, and you can pick what you like. And that's a whole smorgasbord of stuff that you can pick. Now, you'll be surprised what's out there that those children can select, and they can select a series of stuff too that really fortify their life. So, some of the stuff you're saying is true. I mean, they don't make you take art. Students select art, and they select art 4 years in a row. You didn't have, I don't know, maybe you did, ROTC. Right. They got that now. And the options, I don't think, block schedule isn't the issue in terms of selection. I'll tell you that much. My experience in this school system, Massachusetts school system, it's not the issue in terms of selection.
Here's my problem. I got 2 grandsons at Beaufort High. And they get their blocks and they're all set up. My grandsons, both of them, one's going in the senior year. He says, I'm not going to be doing much the second semester, because I got it already blocked out. The same with my other one. He went to school for about 2 hours a day. And that,
Yeah, because he selected that.
yeah, I
And
knew.
y'all did mandate him to take a whole day.
I you're getting ready to go into the workforce. You work, you got 8 to 5.
Yeah, but
And we're not at school.
that's
9 to 3.
that's the driving thing too.
And so that's opportunities
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah, it's lost, and I've been for years discouraging the early graduation. It's like they get out of it, December, they're done. They got enough units, they only need 24, And I've got my 24, why would I need to come back the next semester, Mr. Gamble? I can go get a job. I said, but look at what you could take. At these courses, have you had anatomy? No, what about zoology? Yeah, and these are courses that you get a chance at. But that's a part of us monitoring, educating, and making education first.
And part of it is, I take the risk of taking this course and not getting an A.
Well, all of that.
I mean, they become risk adverse for sure.
Oh, that's a part of educating too.
Yeah.
Our IB program supposed to make sure that there is takers. And that's the other part of it is, I don't think it's fundamentally would be how. It's how we get them to do what we want. And that might be something we gotta look at. How do we get that child to say, hey, I know I'm gonna need 2, but I'm gonna take 4. Because I wanna learn this, I wanna learn that. By the time they're in 12th grade, they're made. You can't change that mindset in the 12th grade. He's already decided in the junior year that he's gonna be done, and he's gonna find, some place to hang out the second half of the day or get a job. But that's and that's an elephant in the room. But I don't think the block scheduling or getting away from the block scheduling gonna solve that. That's not gonna change that any.
Yeah.
It's just they're gonna limit what your intent is in terms of flexibility, because if you go to regular, you got 28 units now after 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And there's only 4 extra, he'll be locked in there. He's gotta take those 28 and you can't go home. Because you gotta have that English 4 now, the 7th period of the last.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But bottom line is, look at all the other courses now that we have created, and we have experts at teaching robotics and other things that will go away. Room for it. So, I think we're on the right track. We just got to now develop the different kind of early minds where they're pursuing that lifelong pursuit of education. That's the other thing. They don't want the education versus the Ferrari. And I understand that both is attainable.
Messaging. If I may just, to build on this for this upcoming year, and Mrs. Gilbert's on and Mrs. Middleton, Latasha, we've worked extensively at readdressing our dual enrollment. So that is a broader scope. We've been able to work with TCL, addressing the GPA differently, as well as accessibility to career technical education courses for dual enrollment. So we are providing that option. So the goal is through school counseling to push our students. Now this gateway is now open. Let us pay for this for you as well. So that is one of our goals.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So 12.6, ensure the instructional program addresses the different learning styles and needs of students of various backgrounds and abilities, and are available to students throughout the district as fairly and equitable as is reasonable. If you go to page 7, you will see the indicators of compliance. We start with a broad scope of content area curriculum supported through project-based learning. MSAT schools We are extensively building the project-based learning ability of our educators through summer trainings, computer simulation learning, computer coding, and medical field of study emphasis, additional school improvement between DOGIA and computational science integration, as well as district funding to support growing interest in STEM. So what I want to make point here is that yes, we have federal money coming in to schools, but we have actually extended these opportunities to other schools outside of the grants. And that is training is happening now that we actually did put in place last year for Project Launch, as well as Z-Space computers that are going to be available right now at our other schools outside of these two grants. Classroom observation data that we utilize to look to see what are the interests of our students and our teachers, development of a district-wide professional learning community guidebook in order to help best practices. You can see the 4 questions from Richard before, that is the essence of the book. Extended community learning program partnerships for students who are not able to, I may not meet the criteria because it's after school extra tutoring, but I still need tutoring and homework assistance. We've done an extensive programming with our churches this coming year. I'm looking for 10 programs, north and south abroad. Hopefully there'll be 2 in Hilton Head, probably 3 in Bluffton, and then the remaining will be north and abroad sites. So that's, in other words, trying to show that we're extending that opportunity again. And then you can see the number of teachers participating in professional development. We gave you some examples. And looking actually at students' work, are we helping our students grow? That's an essence of PLC work, right? That's the evidence. Anything from the team to share? Addressing the different learning needs. I'll push forward as well as for the amount of students with IEPs and ILATs and meeting our GT students as well.
And I think you could just add that, we do work with Dr. White's Shop of Student Services. So there is collaboration there, especially as we move forward to collaborate among the special education curriculum specialists that they have to coach, along with our instructional coaches. So we do have that cross collaboration to support all students, along with multilingual learners and all of the different areas.
As well as our 504. So I'm trying to show you, look at the narrative writing, that we are compliant with federal guidelines with regard to IEPs. On the Office of Civil Rights with 504s and the necessary language, Title VII language for our language learners.
Yeah, I'm concerned with this. Kind of brought this up in a different direction, but I'm concerned with our monitoring those overlaps. And having a gauge on it. And in other words, the special needs children, for example, how many of them are really integrating the major programs and excelling in it? Do we have any kind of numbers or monitoring to say we're doing better now than we did 3 years or 4 years ago with that level of children?
I did not bring that information this way.
No, I'm just
but data can be pulled. Yeah. Mr. Kim, I can make note to have that type of data brought forward.
I don't need it. I just want you
but it's a point.
Yeah, I want it to be where we're going. I want it to be a concern with where we're going and how we're going. I mean, it's a great thing to have all these things in place, but if it's not in place and getting done what we want done, then there's another issue. So that's what I want. I want to know: are we integrating it because we say we have the integration?
So what I could share with the school-wide grants, they're school-wide.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that area, now when it comes to specific programs to see enrollment, I'll have the data looked at from that lens as well, including ACE.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah.
Good afternoon. May I proceed to 12.7? Yes, ma'am. Encourage new and innovative programs. carefully monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of such programs. That's on page 8. The indicators of compliance identify Beaufort County School District supports through a program approval process that we have annually. We do an evaluation of new and innovative programs annually to determine effectiveness. Broad area of content curriculum supported through project-based learning, as in the prior example with the NSAT schools, the DIA. Monitoring of instructional program and software usage in relation to utilization and integration. That is something that I conduct quarterly. I've shared those reports with you in the past. Ongoing school site visitations and reports of program review in order to provide immediate feedback of use of best practices and fidelity. And I could give a case in point just now from Latasha Middleton, who shared the numbers of students involved in Cambridge just from a pilot year. To this year that it actually 2 schools, because May River is the second school on that design. I believe Battery Creek has 8 classes. I think May River is trying to be a contender to Battery Creek. They started with 2, and I believe they're understanding to go to 6 or 7 this year on their master schedule. So we're growing programs based on the requests from our students.
Supposed to have an advantage.
Maybe we're,
Yeah, most students.
yeah.
Yes, they do, just by numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, by numbers, they have more students. But the beauty of the comparison is that Battery Creek with less students has such a greater demand. Yeah.
Any questions on that one?
No, that's great.
All right.
So 12.8, ensure that all instructional programs, including both content and practice, are regularly evaluated and modified as necessary to ensure their continued effectiveness. You go to page 9, it identifies the interpretation of our superintendent. Right after that paragraph are the indicators of compliance. Here we're looking at dropout rates, high school graduation rates, which we had our highest graduation rates in Beaufort County last year. Open enrollment registration, percentage of students whose score meets and exceeds as measured by SC Ready and pass, percentage of students who score at or above a grade C on the end of course exam, as we all know is an EOC, percentage of students meeting college and or career readiness indicators, parent and student surveys, school site evidence of practice, and school improvement plans. These are all items that we monitor on a regular basis within our division, and we have provided reporting mechanisms to the meeting.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
I did have a question on how are we monitoring the student college readiness piece? How are we doing that?
Mrs. Gilbert or Mrs. Middleton, if either one of you would like to share in, the question at the table is how are we monitoring our college and or career readiness indicators?
I'll be glad to go first. So, great question, Mr. Smith. We have processes and systems in place all the way from the scheduling, intentional scheduling of students based on their interests, needs, toward graduation requirements, and the tools that we use for that. And then we use such things called Enrich that helps to track how our students are on par to graduate or to meet those college and career readiness indicators. And then on the career and tech ed side, I have multiple annual federal and state reporting that allows us to do a deep dive into the data of how many students in what content areas or pathways that they are graduating in. Ms. Middleton, do you want to add as to on the counseling side?
It's the same. We watch our students from 9th grade to 12th, and we make sure that they're in a pathway or on a college readiness path, so that we ensure that they're either college and or ready. Our goal is to try to make them all be both college and career ready. Our CDF works with the counselors to ensure that the students who are in those CTE courses are taking the correct courses in the correct sequence, and it's aligned to be in place to take that industry credential so that they can be considered career ready. So we work together to ensure that our students are on track, and we watch their transcripts and we watch their matriculation from 9th grade through 12th grade.
And it's also state accountability.
Yes.
For our state school report cards. So it's a heavy emphasis for us. Yes.
Was that, can you hear now?
Yeah, what did,
That was before 5 o'clock.
Okay. Now I just thought there said no sound. I hear, that's, to me, that's some of the technical piece of it, and in terms of what we're talking about, but in terms of tangible, my question is what do that look like at the school level, at the district level? How can, not just saying that off of tests that students have taken, but how can we assure that this is that these students are ready for the college, and how do we know like what proof do we have?
So you also have a state requirement, he has a state requirement for college and for your assessment, it's required by states, that if a student has a choice of sitting for an ACT or an SAT assessment,
Right.
that it's also a tool on the reporting mechanisms that principals look at, and we look at those data points as well. That helps us know. For the college ready.
Right, or like ACT, and SAT, right.
Yes.
But I mean, but is there anything besides, because as a student, I still can test well, but still directly will not have possession. You know what I'm saying?
So,
I get what you're saying, but, I mean, there's no way you can tell.
Okay.
I mean, a person graduated from high school to be the top student in the classroom, he's got all the information, and he's got to test well, and if you interview him, he might speak well, but he might still go to college and bum out.
Right.
There are no guarantees. You have to apply what you have. These indicators we have said, okay, we got to prepare it.
Right.
They've got the certificate and here, and they've monitored here, and they're ready in terms of career because they got 2 things that they've mastered and got the certificates in. That's all we can go by. They got that barber's license, or whatever, and that's career ready as far as we're concerned. He might all of a sudden have a dislike for electricity. You can monitor that and say, okay, we never had it ready.
Right, but those ones I don't dispute those. I mean, those are clear cut because we know because they have the correct tools in their tool belt to move forward to work.
That's what they got to have to get these things. Yeah, that's those percentages. They got to have those documents to say they're career ready. We don't just step up and say they're career ready.
Mr. Smith,
it's evidence they can provide. in the
this OE deals with, what evidence do we have that we are evaluating and monitoring the effectiveness? These are things that we look at. These are the compliance things. And the state tells us the college and career readiness. We know what the state's looking for to identify kids as college and career ready. And so those are the things that we're monitoring to see if we're compliant to. Colonel Geyer?
This is something that Joan Geary, former school board member, works on. He says every time she sees me about how do you really know? And I give her the same answers that you have just given, and that doesn't seem to me. She said, well, aren't you talking to them? Well, I try to explain that, we could call mama and say, how's your son doing in college? Oh, he's doing great. Maybe he is and maybe he's not, but, mama's not gonna say that. And, so is try to contact the individual. The school called and wants you to call them back and tell them how you're doing. Yeah, okay, right. And so what you get, unfortunately, is it's kind of like one of these surveys where it's not a random mandatory survey. You're either completely satisfied or you're completely unsatisfied. You never hear about the middle. And so it's really, really difficult to get that kind of data that means something. And, I understand his point. His question, yeah, oh yeah.
His question is, okay, You send them out ahead, they're supposed to be ready.
Yeah,
How many of them really become barbers? How many of them really become electricians?
right.
And are we gonna monitor that? Because that's really the effectiveness of our program. If they guide it and they use it. And that's that's a probably 1,000-year-old question in education. But we can do better monitoring, I'm sure. We can look at our students that we send at College of Charleston in 2020 and see how many of them really graduated.
So that's actually a federal guideline requirement
Yeah.
for institutions that receive federal funding. So their completer and their rate of completing is actually not guidelines that are required to be reported on, but at the post-secondary, yes, sir.
It's, that's important stuff too.
Yeah.
Of course, in today's world, it's always an indicator of successful education. Sometimes those kids say, Bill Gates. Never go John. They're bright in college and they deviate and go into something, an entrepreneur type stuff that, all of a sudden they made it. And I don't know, you wanted them to stay in college and not do it? So it's the other component of that. So it's, education is a tough deal.
Okay, under 12.9.
So 12.9 shares that we protect the instructional time provided for students during the academic day by prohibiting interruptions, due to unnecessary intrusions, unnecessary teacher time out of classrooms, or the scheduling of activities that can be scheduled during other times. If you look down to the indicators, obviously we are in compliance by the state for our calendar. Next item is BCSC supports appropriate use of assembly programs. We actually have that language in administrative regulation. BCSC meets state laws and regulations that require the length of the instructional day, the length of the school day for elementary and middle schools. And the third bullet on that page, schools shall give priority to teaching and learning tasks and should interrupt classes only for emergencies. That is language right out of our administrative regulation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is something that really got me this year. My grandson said, I took my tests 10 school days before the end of the term, and he was watching movies. He said, why should I sit there and watch movies? I thought, well, it's high school, maybe. But then I was at Robert Small's, and Brad Terrence tells me, I found him watching movies last two weeks of school because the testing was done. I said, no more. That kind of bothers me that we test and then we say, okay, it used to be we tested about the last couple days of the school and you got the report card and the grades and everything else. Now they're testing 2 weeks prior to the end of school, and then we're messing around. And this says here, we're going to maximize instructional time. Baloney.
Well, I won't say that all the schools landed to that, Colonel Geyer, but that experience is actually one of the schools that you cited. And that was a conversation that I didn't have with that principal at left because it's not accepted.
Absolutely.
And that principal does have the right to go into that room and remove that item.
He did.
Right. Because I had that conversation with him to take it out.
Yep.
And it's okay, you do it once or twice, the message passes.
Yep.
I can tell you from personal experience, being a school principal, my teachers did not want to hear my heels walking down that hall the last week of school because I had an absolute rule, law, no movies. So in our PLCs, we planned educational experiences that were enriching. Because state testing, once it's done, and the state gives you the time frame when you can do it.
Yes.
So that's beyond our control. So once it's done, you need to, you have those days, but they need to be educational. And I think that the PLCs can ensure that educational things are happening. And I also think what you just said, that supports the 85, the schedule that we have. Because the 90-90, matter because the first, they actually have more
Right.
seat time. So anyways,
They have a distinct disadvantage.
Yeah.
When that's
Yeah.
second semester.
Yeah.
But the other part of that now, the argument from the classroom teachers part of it is,
How do you control?
well, with 5 days to go, I want to show a movie and have my kids relax and enjoy and discuss and see another side of them and what they're thinking. I don't think, the test is done. And no matter what I teach them now, you're not going to give me credit for it. And the kid's not going to get credit for it in terms of the information learned. But I want to leave them with a different relationship that last week. I want them to remember some things we did outside of the instruction. And to me, that's an important element of saying goodbye to the kids, but also you can't teach them things without it being instructional. That's so I pulled my movie out. So we're gonna look, which one do you guys want to go? I think I like this one. Why, Mr. Campbell? 'Cause I can show you guys something in it. What do you want to show us? I said, I just want to show you what happened and how it could happen and, experiences that, that the movie shows. Movies aren't just, right now, we're almost the cart behind Hollywood in terms of information dispersing. They're leading us. And we're deciding what to do in education according to what they do. It's a sad commentary, but that's the way it is.
One of the things I thought about, what would I do? What would I do? I got the grades are figured out, classes, tests. I'd have them write down what you learned in this class.
Yeah.
And turn it in, and I'm going to edit it. I'm going to turn it back. You can do a better job. Write it better.
Now, see, that's the conversation. I don't want that.
he doesn't want you.
I don't want it because they don't want to do it. Man, come on.
We don't teach writing.
Reflective. That's reflection, and that's a part of what you could do. And there are all kind of ways that you could get something else done. And I wouldn't throw out the way kids learn these days. See how they learn. So you don't want to throw out something because when you went to school, you had to write down all that stuff. Hey, man, write a pencil. Come on.
I think when we go back to this, I think there is the expectation to maximize instructional time, and maybe that's something that can be talked about at the PLC level.
I wrote that down, purposeful
Yeah.
plan, and closer work with the EDs on semester exams.
So we have 10 minutes left.
And I was gonna say this the answer to, this is to both of their pieces. Also sometimes I just sub, what one teacher left, like, at the end of the year, she said basically, she had to watch the movie, and the movie was based upon a life experience, and they had to write about the movie and what they got gathered from that movie. So that's just another spin, just to add to basically both of what I was speaking to, just to.
And the PLC could plan that out. Okay, all right, 12:10.
12:10, ensure the district calendar and time made available during the instructional day, assign priority to, and best serve the learning needs of students.
Sounds like 12:9. Could we combine those?
They're getting that this is one of the areas that it splits hairs, yes, ma'am. So I'll make note of that, and maybe we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
Indicators, administrative guidelines that limit interruptions, district calendar, exceptional education programming schedules, master schedules for each schools, professional development practices, upbeat school, climate survey, and variety of approved excursions. In other words, I approve the field trips, and I'm very good at the word no. Oh. Sorry, but I have to say no to things,
Yeah.
I have to.
Honorable.
Okay.
1211.
1211, select textbooks and instructional materials that advance the achievement of the board's results policy and that achieve continuity, integration, and articulation of the curriculum by course and program. If we go to page 11, you'll see right after the quote at the very top, indicators of compliance. I'll let you go through that. We've done a presentation. This was right from the presentation on the textbook adoption, on the citation to the South Carolina School Board of Education is right on top that, we are compliant with the practices as designated by law. If I go down to 12.12, regularly evaluate materials and textbooks and maintain a procedure for reviewing such materials upon formal requests by a parent or other stakeholders. That is part of South Carolina law. We have to, and it is a vetting process through the textbook caravan. The books are available for parents to review. It was actually cited earlier today by our guest speaker. But I know I ran through those quickly. I do apologize.
Any questions on those textbooks? I think we've been over that for a while.
Yes, yeah. 1213, adequately monitor and control student access to and utilization of electronically distributed information. If you look down to the indicators, we utilize a single sign-on practice for student access to computer software. We utilize IBOS security management program for all users. Teachers utilize Dino, that's a software that allows you to see what the students are doing when you're in class as real-time student appropriate usage tool. We follow the copyright and plagiarism guidelines. There's a mechanism for monitoring students' computer usage with in-house and IT security. New software programs undergo a multi-level review process. Percentage of assigned acceptable use policy forms, we keep all of that information through educational technology, and we have a posting of accessible use policy, and students actually sign off on that on the receipt of their devices.
I have one question about this one. How frequently are the new software programs reviewed?
So that's actually in a prior with regard to reviewing instructional programs.
Okay.
I look at the uses quarterly.
Quarterly, you did say
Yeah,
quarterly.
I do look at it
Yeah.
quarterly. Even down to ingenuity, I look at the utilization and result of in relation to grades for summer school. I have to share that as well.
Yeah.
I keep an eye.
Also, I'll ask a question too. Also, can we tell exactly how much usage any in particular student is using?
It can be that myopic. I do not have Colleen with us today, but as a super user administrator in a classroom, like I can give you an example, Reading Plus iReady, we can go down and like send if I will, you've been on time this much. Our goal is 45 minutes, you've only done 30 this week, but we've got 10 more to go. With Reading Plus, we have that same capability with Dreambox as well. So our software does go down to individual students at my office.
It actually hit my point. Yes,
Yeah.
that was actually my
Yeah,
point.
with instructional,
Right.
or as well as, let's say, even like Edgenuity. I know I'm on it, Mom. No, it shows that you were on the on for 2% of this course.
And that's.
We
my
have
point.
that capability as well.
That is my point.
Okay. No, we do.
Okay, it's good to know. Can parents check that too?
That, no, you would have to be a super user.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have to be a user. 1214 or Mrs. Robine?
Yeah.
Okay. Ensure appropriate input from students, parents, teachers, administrators, and other staff members involved in the instructional programs as textbooks are reviewed and selected. Again, it's redundant from prior. We follow the state law, that vetting process and input, and we publicize everything regarding textbooks. 1215, ensure teachers participate in collaborative learning communities and other professional learning to improve instruction and student learning. I want to also add within this is part of administrative regulation IS2. It was initiated in the district in 2005. This has been a standard of practice. So there was a nice relationship to see that you have collaborative work as an OE as well as been an AR within our system. These are our indicators. If you look at 1216, I'll go forward, engage families in meaningful ways in their children's education and keep them informed of their learning progress. If you go to mid on page 14, through PowerSchool having open access to parents, we conduct parent conferences and maintain ongoing parent communications from district level and from school site that put out weekly newsletters. Parent response rate feedback from state and district surveys. We keep that type of data, especially with our report card. That's significant. Parents response rate feedback with project management software, and you can see the list goes straight down to the point of even having parent universities that we conducted this year and home visits.
Do you ever measure the effectiveness of those things like parent university? I mean, it's hard to do it. So you have to have some baseline data before you put it in.
This was our first year of doing the parent universities, and we had light service of parents being involved. So we keep the data of involvement. We haven't had exit surveys tied to it, Mr. King, but I could add that for practice.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
and sometimes you gotta learn what's effective and what's not. Or that's always throwing something at the fire, you know?
Title I schools always have
They
required
have to.
forever parent meetings, parent trainings. And if you're
Yeah.
a Title I school, you've got to have those things for your
And
parents.
Title VII requires us
Which
as well.
ones are effective?
Right, but we're getting funding from for that.
Title I,
Federal.
federal money.
That's federal.
Title I, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I made note of that, for some type of exit survey and to see how we could build on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work Street, may have put it in schools that are not Title
So the parent universities that we conduct at the district level are open to all schools?
schools.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then the title schools as well as our Title III requirement, Title VII requirement, we have to have parent meetings.
I. When you conduct it at the district level, that means that the individual schools are not
And we
targeted.
invite you. No, when they, let's
We
say,
invite them, but
Yeah,
not
we-
targeted.
from the district level, it is open for everyone. And we've done them face-to-face and on Zoom. So schools, that has been open for everyone. At the school site, they target within their school.
Within the school.
Yes, sir.
And are they doing that?
But that has been our practice, yes.
I mean, the school level, so you got
Pre-COVID,
that information on,
Yes and yes.
okay.
So, but yes, even last
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
we
that's
went
what
back
I
to the
was
practice of
saying.
face-to-face meetings. We did.
That was my concern. The
Yeah.
schools that aren't doing it, is there an indicator that is effective versus the schools that are not doing it?
I got you. So under title requirement, there is an exit survey that has to be executed within the funded for these events. So yes, they do have feedback that's provided from the district level. That's where I was taking up at a parent university from the district. That would be a practice I'm going to say we need to put in place.
I mean, yeah, not just the feedback. Parents will say good things, bad things.
Yeah, it's hard to measure though, you know.
I
Parents.
wanna measure what happened long term with discipline, and whatever the problem was,
Right.
what's the reason for the parent? You know,
Right.
why would we have the parenting universities unless some different kind of things are needed?
Yeah, they're usually
It's their
teaching
results.
reading strategies, math strategies, that
And
kind
the
of,
parent universities, they don't teach them about having the kids in school on time,
well,
stuff like that.
I can share for you that when I did at Hilton Head IB at the elementary, because I did a presentation to them, my conversation went to butts and seats reading school, reading, giving our children a place here. Because I was working with the Spanish community.
Yeah.
They have to be there to work.
yeah, okay, Mr.
Okay.
Smith, and then we need to move on. Almost
Well, I have a
another time.
a real quick two-part question. One, well, you got answered, but one also was, you know how they had the program where parents could log on and see the kids' grades?
Yeah, we still have that.
Right, is that parent university, that's something strict done?
We actually showed that as well, how to get on our parent universities for Power School. That was a topic.
Okay, then I asked you, because some parents have been asking me, first week, can you show me, I'm like, really? I'm not really familiar with that, so you might want to go by the school and ask somebody, and that may be something too that maybe want to show grandmothers, because I think the more people you have engaged watching the kids' grades, that's more interaction and more engaged that you have that family involved in that kid's behavior and so on. Those are things that are very very important. Move that kid to move that kid to the next grade level, to the next keep that kid in school. So yeah, that was.
And that's generally one of the practices at open house, beginning of the school year.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is one of the key things that we have administrators try to push that, yeah.
So that's something I need to put in that.
Open house, yes.
Yeah.
Our last item on, within this OE is 12.17. It ensures that each student has access to guidance services that include but are not limited to counseling, appraisal, mentoring, staff counseling, referral, and educational career planning. If you look to page 15, and I have Mrs. Latasha Middleton with us as well, we have our indicators on the top. Administrative Regulation SS49 has been developed to maintain a comprehensive developmental school counseling program for all BCSD students. That AR is very detailed in what we are to provide our students through our school counseling. BCSD provides school counselors professional development opportunities to better service its students. Giving you examples. The second example, the LCP, the licensed counseling practitioner, we're in our second year of paying. We pay as a district for counselors to get their licensing to get into counseling of their students beyond just academic counseling. Yes, ma'am. BCSD schools meet state recommendations for student to school counselor ratio, college and career readiness reports that are provided, as Mrs. Gilbert shared, and through the individual graduation plan process, students can obtain access to. I shared with you some of the access that they provided and the academic courses of study.
And I think our ratio is actually better than the state recommended.
We are better than the state recommended. Yes, we are.
Counselors.
Yeah.
We also.
Dr. Stratus, if I may thank again the board members for the addition of the CDFs. Ms. Milton and I had a year-end PD with our new CDFs, and we're doing our kickoff tomorrow where they will set goals and be able to track that as we move forward. So again, thank you so much for the added manpower. We think it's going to make a tremendous difference.
Great. And if I could share, each of you familiar with Jerry Henderson, who was our prior director of school counseling. Mrs. Middleton is continuing in that pathway and opening in more doors and partnerships. So kudos to each of you.
Mr. Stribinger?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, did we say that we exceed state recommendations for student to school counselor ratio?
Yes.
No.
Go ahead.
We have a better ratio than the state recommends. So we don't have, Does that mean to exceed?
Yeah, we exceed state recommendations. Okay. That would be better wording, because this is a real focus point for me. The last time y'all presented statistics, it seemed like each counselor had about an hour and 10 minutes to devote to their students over the course of the year. And that really set off an alarm for me. But if we exceed the state recommendations, we should say that. That's important.
But at the same time, Mr. Scrivener, we are not exceeding the national recommendation. And that was our goal, to get to that level eventually, which we have to always be cognitive of where our state lies in terms of education. So just exceeding their recommendation don't mean that we're excelling educationally. So that's my goal, is more counselors again. Let's get those minutes that's recommended from a national standpoint.
I agree with you completely, Mel. That's kind of my point. The state recommendations are so minimal that I just can't see how they're effective.
May I share Mrs. Middleton? So Mrs. Middleton, just to give you some institutional history from this OE, we were significantly not even close to the state. We have gotten to the point through recommendations from Jerry Henderson and committee and myself to get closer to the national standard. This committee has made a commitment to keep growing towards that pathway. So if you can keep it in your pocket within your work, I think it's important for you to recognize that as well, ma'am.
Mr. Smith.
And I would just say that I definitely agree with Mr. Campbell and the scrimmage, as well as I've had parents to say that they thought that in terms of guidance counselors, that they were hoping that guidance counselors would get with their kids more in terms of putting their kids out on a one-on-one basis and even seeing where they are with their classes and how school is going. And that's why I can agree with the part of getting more of them, because a lot of those kids need that, you know, and that one person pulling you out may be able to understand some processing question that a kid could be having, whether it's school related or not, or whether that kid is really, you know, in trouble. And that is instrumental, because you know that is a part of their work that I don't believe that they are getting to in terms of students, because we do need to make sure that our students are being served to the full capacity, and that is something that it does concern me. You know, not just doing that in elementary school, but in the high school, middle school is a time when that is much needed, and now that is happening enough, and I'm sure they know what they can do, but the more the merrier, the better.
So we need to put some money behind that statement.
Bring it up with
yes,
the vote.
yeah.
We gotta vote.
I need a motion now to take this OE and put it on under consent agenda. If so desired, I mean, I don't have the members.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move that we put this OE 12, Title 12
Mhm.
on the consent agenda at the next board meeting.
Second.
That is August 2nd.
August 2nd.
Colonel Geyer, second. Any comments, any discussion?
No, I think we
No.
talked about it all.
All right, all those committee members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 4-0. Okay. So the last thing on our agenda is to, future topics. Colonel Geyer.
Have we ever had the academic committee received a comprehensive briefing on the district's writing program?
And,
You're gonna have part of that on August 2nd.
Oh.
So, but I will have the full presentation if it's okay, because there's a manual that's been developed. So yes.
okay, if it's not sufficient, we'll
Yeah.
have it here, okay?
Yeah, because we're just gonna do a one slider. So.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Any other topics at this time?
So that's not the topic, since we're gonna have that.
Well, we'll leave it on the agenda
Okay.
because it may
Yeah.
not be, yeah. Colonel Geyer may want more, and we can just communicate about that. Yes?
In terms of topics, this is more, well, it is educational, spirit. They would like to learn how many students, in the sped department is district serving.
So you want a number of students?
Yeah, and just, you know, in terms of, how many number of sped students at every school, and how many, and I know we have teachers, how many teachers that do we have serving these students, just kind of trying to figure out, not trying to figure out, just seeing in terms of the sending as a guidance counselor, do we have enough?
Okay, well, okay, I'll just leave that there and we'll, okay.
May I?
Yes,
So to piggyback on maybe prior, can I bring the data for looking at the number of special education audit students in programs? Putting that,
yeah,
all right, can I bring that forward then?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay,
The trend data, I'll take it, all right?
okay. All right, anything else? All right, I think we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
You got a question?
We did not set the time.